In the vast, uncharted reaches of the cosmos, the Galactic Assembly convened for what was supposed to be another mundane session of interspecies diplomacy. The meeting hall, an enormous dome-shaped structure floating in zero gravity, hummed faintly with the sound of translators buzzing and bureaucratic chatter. Representatives from over 100 civilizations filled the room, their wildly varying anatomies and cultures reflected in the clothing, postures, and gestures they used to communicate. From the sleek, eel-like Surrey delegation gliding in their aquatic containment suits to the towering, crystalline Exlorans emitting light pulses in carefully timed patterns, the assembly was a chaotic tapestry of the galaxy's diversity. The humans, however, occupied a particularly peculiar corner of this grand spectacle. Their delegation, a mix of military personnel, scientists, and diplomats, had earned a reputation for their unpredictable behavior and peculiar brand of humor. Captain Alan Mercer, the human representative in charge, sat at the table with a slightly amused expression as he observed the proceedings. His uniform was crisp, his posture confident, but his eyes betrayed a spark of mischief. To his right sat Dr. Elena Vasquez, an astrophysicist with a penchant for asking uncomfortable questions, and to his left was Ensign Liam Drake, a young and eager officer who looked perpetually overwhelmed by the grandeur of the assembly. "So, what's the agenda today?" Captain Mercer muttered under his breath, leaning toward Elena. She smirked and tapped her datapad, her eyes scanning the list. Standard stuff. Trade agreements, territorial disputes, and, oh, look at this. The Grullock delegation wants to discuss resource-sharing policies for the mineral-rich sectors of Quadrant 7b. Alan sighed. Another day of galactic politics. Riveting. It was then that the Grullock representative, a massive, quadrupedal creature with scales that shimmered like oil on water, stood and addressed the assembly. Its voice, deep and resonant, boomed through the hall. The Grullock Dominion demands exclusive mining rights to Quadrant 7b, it declared, its translator relaying the words in a monotone. Our fleets discovered the sector, and we will not tolerate interference. The room erupted into a cacophony of protests. Delegates from neighboring systems raised objections, their voices clashing in a chaotic symphony of indignation. The argument escalated rapidly, with accusations and counterclaims flying across the chamber. Alan leaned back in his chair, a bemused expression on his face. And here we go. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations, squabbling like kids over a playground. Elena chuckled. Welcome to the Galactic Assembly, where bureaucracy meets melodrama. Amidst the uproar, a new voice cut through the noise, sharp and commanding. The human delegation wishes to speak. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Alan. He stood, straightened his uniform, and stepped forward with an air of casual authority. Honored delegates, he began, his tone calm yet firm. Before we tear each other apart over rocks and minerals, perhaps we should consider a more cooperative approach. The Grullock representative snorted, a guttural sound that echoed through the hall. And what would humans know of cooperation? Your species is new to the galactic stage. You have no claim here. Alan's smile didn't waver. You're right. Humanity is new to this assembly. But if there's one thing we've learned in our short time here, it's that unity is far more profitable than division. Imagine what we could achieve if we pooled our resources instead of hoarding them. The murmurs began anew, softer this time, as delegates exchanged skeptical glances. The Grullock representative glared at Alan, its eyes narrowing. Bold words, human. But words alone do not resolve disputes. Alan's smile widened. Then let's put those words to the test. A joint task force to oversee mining operations in Quadrant 7b, equal representation, shared profits, and strict oversight to prevent exploitation. If it fails, you can have your exclusive rights. But if it succeeds, well, we all benefit, don't we? The proposal hung in the air, a tantalizing possibility that challenged the Assembly's entrenched norms. For a moment, it seemed as though the debate might shift toward cooperation. But then, the lights in the chamber flickered. A low, ominous hum reverberated through the hall, growing louder with each passing second. Delegates looked around in confusion and alarm as the sound reached a deafening crescendo. What the hell is that? Liam blurted, his voice tinged with panic. Before anyone could answer, a holographic projection materialized in the center of the chamber. It depicted a vast fleet of alien warships, their sleek designs bristling with weapons. A voice, cold and emotionless, accompanied the image. "Attention, Galactic Assembly. This is the Vraxian Dominion. You have ignored our warnings and encroached upon our territory. As of this moment, you are all under our jurisdiction. Surrender, or face annihilation." The projection vanished, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. The delegates erupted into chaos, their fear and desperation palpable. Alan exchanged a glance with Elena, his expression shifting from amusement to grim determination. "Well," he said, his voice steady despite the tension. "That's one way to liven up a meeting." The Grullock representative roared in anger. "This is an outrage. The Vraxians have no right to dictate terms to us." Elena tapped her datapad furiously, her brow furrowed. "Alan, the Vraxian fleet is massive. If they attack, the assembly doesn't stand a chance." Alan nodded. "Then we'd better make sure that doesn't happen." He turned back to the assembly, raising his voice to cut through the chaos. "Delegates, listen to me. The Vraxians are counting on our division. If we stand together, we can face this threat. But if we let fear and distrust tear us apart, we're as good as dead." The room quieted once more, though the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alan's words carried weight, but the fear in the room was palpable. "And what do you propose, human?" the Grullock representative demanded. Alan took a deep breath. "A united defense. Combine our fleets, our resources, and our expertise. Together, we might have a chance." The assembly erupted into debate, with voices raised in both support and opposition. Alan glanced at Elena, who gave him a small, encouraging nod. "They'll never agree in time," she whispered. "Then we'll make them," Alan replied, his jaw set. As the debate raged on, the humans worked tirelessly to rally support. They spoke with delegates, made impassioned pleas, and leveraged every ounce of their limited influence. Slowly but surely, they began to sway the assembly. Hours later, as the chamber descended into exhaustion and tension, a consensus began to emerge. The delegates voted, and by the slimmest of margins, the assembly agreed to form a united defense force. Alan stood before the assembly once more, his voice steady and resolute. "We have one shot at this. Let's make it count." The delegates dispersed to prepare their fleets, leaving the humans to coordinate the monumental task of uniting the galaxy's disparate forces. As they worked, Alan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a far greater challenge. The Vraxian fleet loomed on the horizon, an unstoppable force threatening to plunge the galaxy into darkness. And yet, amidst the fear and uncertainty, Alan felt a spark of hope. For the first time, the galaxy's diverse civilizations were united by a common purpose. And humanity, with its unique blend of determination and ingenuity, was at the heart of it all. As the Galactic Assembly's plan to unite their forces took its first, tenuous steps forward, the Vraxian Dominion's fleet continued its relentless approach. On the human vessel Resolute Captain Alan Mercer and his team were deep in the throes of planning. The weight of coordinating a united defense for the galaxy bore down heavily on their shoulders. For many species present, the idea of trusting their ancient rivals, much less fighting alongside them, was as foreign as humanity itself. "Reports are coming in from the Exlorans," Elena said, leaning over her console. Her sharp gaze flicked across the holographic display of incoming fleet positions. "They've agreed to send 5 of their crystal ships to join the task force. But the Surrock delegation is still less than cooperative." Alan gritted his teeth. The Surrock. Of course. They'd rather fight over scraps than see the bigger picture. He turned to Liam, who was juggling a barrage of incoming transmissions. "Ensign, get me a secure line to the Surrock ambassador. Now." "Yes, sir," Liam replied, his fingers flying over the console. "Should I remind them what's at stake?" "No need," Alan said with a grim smile. "I'll do it personally." As Liam connected the call, Alan prepared himself for yet another round of diplomatic maneuvering. The Surrock ambassador, an elongated creature encased in a shimmering, translucent exosuit, appeared on the screen. Its voice resonated like the hum of a tuning fork. "Captain Mercer," the Surrock said, its tone cold. "I hope this interruption is worth my time." "Ambassador," Alan began, keeping his voice level. "I understand your reluctance to trust the other delegations, but if we don't work together, there won't be any territories left to fight over. The Vraxians don't discriminate. They'll annihilate all of us equally." The Surrock tilted its head, its bioluminescent eyes narrowing. "You humans speak of unity, yet you barely understand our histories, our grievances. What makes you think you can lead such an effort?" Alan's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone measured. "You're right. Humanity is new to the galactic stage. But maybe that's exactly what makes us the right choice. We don't have the baggage of centuries of conflict weighing us down. All we care about is survival, yours, ours, everyone's." The ambassador's gaze lingered on Alan for a long moment before it finally spoke. "We will send 2 battle squadrons. Do not squander them, Captain." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Alan with a mixture of relief and frustration. He turned to Elena, who gave him a rare smile. "That's another win," she said. "Small, but it counts." "We'll need a lot more small wins to stand a chance," Alan replied. "What's the status of the joint command structure?" Elena's smile faded. "Still a mess. The Grulloch and the Torvans can't agree on who gets operational authority over the Central Fleet. Meanwhile, the Xycra delegation keeps demanding veto power over all strategic decisions." Alan groaned. "It's like herding cats. Violent, territorial cats with advanced weaponry." Before Elena could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Captain Mercer, this is Commander Hayes on the bridge. You're going to want to see this." Alan and Elena exchanged a glance before making their way to the bridge. When they arrived, the main viewscreen displayed a live feed of the Vraxian fleet. The warships, sleek and ominous, had begun to form a blockade around the outer edge of the Assembly's territory. "They're sending a message," Commander Hayes said, her voice grim. "They're daring us to make the first move." Alan stared at the screen, his mind racing. The Vraxians were masters of psychological warfare, and their tactics were designed to sow fear and doubt. He knew that any sign of hesitation or weakness could shatter the fragile coalition he was trying to build. "What's their fleet composition?" he asked. Hayes gestured to the tactical display. 30 heavy cruisers, 20 carriers, and at least 50 smaller support ships. "Their firepower is significant." Alan nodded, his expression unreadable. "And ours?" "Still coming together," Hayes admitted. "But even if we manage to unite the Assembly's fleets, we'll be outnumbered 2 to 1. Then we can't afford to fight them on their terms," Alan said. He turned to Elena. "We need a strategy that plays to our strengths. Something unconventional." Elena's eyes lit up with a mixture of curiosity and determination. "I might have an idea. Give me a few hours to run some simulations." Alan nodded. "Do it. And in the meantime, we'll keep the coalition focused. No more infighting." As the team worked tirelessly to prepare for the coming confrontation, tensions within the coalition continued to simmer. Delegates argued over resource allocations, fleet positioning, and battle strategies. Old grudges flared up, threatening to derail the fragile alliance. One such confrontation occurred during a joint command meeting aboard the Resolute Star. Representatives from the Grulloch, Torvan, and Xycra delegations squared off, their voices rising in anger. "Your ships are outdated and unreliable," the Torvan commander snapped at the Grulloch representative. "You'll only slow us down." The Grulloch representative bared its fangs. "And your people are cowards who abandon their allies at the first sign of trouble." The Xycra representative, a wiry, insectoid creature, clicked its mandibles in irritation. "Enough. If we cannot reach consensus, we might as well surrender now." Alan stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise. "That's enough. We don't have time for this. The Vraxians are counting on us to tear ourselves apart, and we're playing right into their hands." The room fell silent as the delegates turned to face him. Alan's gaze was steely, his words measured. "I know you don't trust each other. Hell, most of you don't trust us. But right now, we're all we've got. So either we find a way to work together, or we all lose. It's that simple. The delegates exchanged uneasy glances, but no one spoke. Alan took their silence as a sign of reluctant agreement. Good, he said. Now, let's get back to work. As the coalition's preparations continued, Elena's simulations yielded a bold and unorthodox strategy. She presented it to the Joint Command in a tense briefing aboard the Resolute Star. The Vraxians are expecting a head-on confrontation, she explained, her holographic display showing the predicted battle scenarios. But their formation has a critical vulnerability: their supply lines. If we can disrupt their logistics, we'll force them to spread their forces thin, giving us a fighting chance. The room buzzed with murmurs as the delegates considered her proposal. Some were skeptical, others intrigued. Alan stepped forward to lend his support. This is our best shot, he said. It's risky, but playing it safe won't win us this fight. If we work together and execute this plan with precision, we can turn the tide. After a tense deliberation, the coalition voted to proceed with Elena's strategy. The plan required precise coordination and trust, two things that were in short supply. But with the Vraxians' fleet looming ever closer, there was no time to second-guess. As the coalition's fleets began to mobilize, Alan stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the ships move into position. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him, but he refused to waver. This is it, he said quietly. The moment we prove what we're capable of. Elena stood beside him, her expression a mixture of determination and anticipation. We've done everything we can. Now it's up to them. As the coalition prepared to launch their daring plan, the Vraxian fleet loomed like a storm on the horizon. The stakes had never been higher, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The coalition's daring plan was set in motion, and every moment of its execution teetered on the edge of chaos. The combined fleets of the Galactic Assembly, a patchwork of mismatched ships from 100 different civilizations, converged on the Vraxian blockade. Each ship's crew carried their own fears and doubts, but the shared goal of survival bound them together. On the Resolute, Captain Alan Mercer stood at the center of the bridge, his gaze fixed on the holographic display of the battlefield. Around him, the crew moved with tense precision, their every action critical to the operation's success. Status report, Alan called out, his voice cutting through the tension. All strike teams are in position, Elena replied, her fingers flying over her console. The decoy fleet is holding steady, drawing the Vraxians' main forces toward Quadrant Beta. So far, they haven't detected our flanking maneuver. Good, Alan said, nodding. Keep the pressure on. Timing is everything. The coalition's plan hinged on deception and precision. While a decoy fleet engaged the Vraxians head-on, smaller strike teams would slip past their defenses to disrupt critical supply lines. If successful, the Vraxian fleet would be forced to retreat, buying the coalition precious time to strengthen their defenses. But the Vraxians were no fools. Their fleet moved with ruthless efficiency, responding to the decoy fleet's maneuvers with calculated precision. The enemy's sheer size and firepower were overwhelming, and every mistake the coalition made was punished swiftly. We've lost contact with the Veskarian squadron, Liam reported, his voice tinged with alarm. They're gone. Alan's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to stay focused. We'll honor their sacrifice later. Right now, we have to stay on mission. Redirect the Torvan wing to cover the gap. Aye, sir, Liam replied, his hands trembling as he relayed the orders. The Resolute shuddered as a nearby explosion rocked the ship. On the viewscreen, the remnants of a coalition frigate drifted through the void, its crew's final moments a grim reminder of the stakes they faced. Alan felt the weight of every life lost, but he couldn't let it show. His crew needed him to be their anchor. Incoming transmission from the Surrock delegation, Elena said. They're reporting heavy losses and requesting permission to fall back. Alan's eyes narrowed. Denied. Tell them to hold their position. If they retreat now, the whole flank will collapse. Elena hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Understood. The battle raged on, a chaotic symphony of destruction and desperation. The coalition's ships, though outmatched, fought with a determination born of necessity. Pilots and gunners pushed their vessels to the brink, their every maneuver a testament to the resilience of their species. Amidst the chaos, Elena's voice broke through the noise. "Alan, the Vraxians are repositioning their fleet. It looks like they've detected our strike teams." Alan's mind raced. The element of surprise had been their greatest advantage, and now it was slipping away. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "Minutes, maybe less," Elena replied. "If they reroute their forces, our teams will be sitting ducks." Alan's gaze hardened. "We need to create a distraction. Something big enough to keep their attention on the decoy fleet." Elena's eyes widened. "You're not seriously considering?" "The Resolute is the only ship positioned close enough to pull it off," Alan said, cutting her off. "Prepare to divert power to the forward shields and weapon systems. We're going in." The bridge fell silent as the crew processed his words. Liam looked up from his console, his face pale. "Sir, if we do this..." "I know the risks," Alan said firmly. "But it's the only way. If we don't act now, the entire mission will fail." Reluctantly, the crew obeyed. The Resolute surged forward, breaking away from the coalition fleet and drawing the Vraxians' attention. Alan gripped the armrests of his chair as the ship's engines roared to life. "Elena, target their lead destroyer," he ordered. "Let's give them something to think about." The Resolute S cannons lit up the void, their bright lances of energy slamming into the Vraxian destroyer's shields. The enemy ship retaliated with a barrage of plasma fire, shaking the Resolute to its core. "Shields at 60%, Elena reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Keep firing," Alan said. "We need to buy the strike teams more time." As the Resolute engaged the Vraxian fleet head-on, the coalition's strike teams executed their mission with renewed urgency. Small, agile ships weaved through the enemy's defenses, targeting supply depots and communication relays. Explosions rippled across the battlefield as the Vraxians' logistics network began to crumble. "They're pulling back," Liam exclaimed, his voice filled with hope. "The strike teams are doing it." Alan allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but the battle was far from over. The Resolute was still under heavy fire, and the Vraxians weren't going down without a fight. "Captain, we've got a problem," Elena said urgently. "The Vraxians are deploying reinforcements. They'll overwhelm us if we don't retreat now." Alan clenched his fists, his mind racing. The mission had succeeded in crippling the Vraxian fleet's supply lines, but escaping the battlefield would be another challenge entirely. "All ships, fall back to Rally Point Omega," he ordered. "We'll cover the retreat." The coalition's ships began to disengage, their formations breaking apart as they made their way toward the designated rally point. The Resolute held its position, drawing the Vraxians' fire to ensure the others could escape. "Shields at 20%, Elena reported, her voice strained. "We can't take much more of this." Alan gritted his teeth. "Divert all available power to the shields and engines. Prepare for emergency jump." The Resolute shook violently as another barrage of plasma fire struck its hull. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered as the ship's systems struggled to hold together. "Jump coordinates locked in," Liam said. "But we're cutting it close." "Do it," Alan ordered. The Resolute surged forward one last time, its engines flaring brightly before the ship vanished into the void. Behind them, the Vraxian fleet loomed ominously, but the coalition had achieved a hard-fought victory. As the Resolute emerged from hyperspace at Rally Point Omega, the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. The battered ship had survived, but the cost of their success weighed heavily on everyone aboard. Alan sank into his chair, exhaustion and relief washing over him. The mission had been a success, but he knew the fight was far from over. The coalition had proven its resilience, but the Vraxians would not be defeated so easily. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly, his voice filled with determination. "But we'll be ready." As the coalition regrouped at Rally Point Omega, the toll of the battle became evident. Ships limped into formation, their hulls scorched and battered. The loss of life weighed heavily on every captain, officer, and crew member. Yet, amidst the exhaustion, a sense of determination pervaded the fleet. For the first time, disparate civilizations, some with centuries of animosity between them, had come together and struck a blow against the Vraxian dominion. They had proven that unity was possible, even in the face of overwhelming odds. On the bridge of the Resolute Captain Alan Mercer addressed his crew. The tension in the air was palpable, but Alan's voice carried a calm, resolute energy. "We've dealt the Vraxians a serious blow today," he began. "But we've also learned something far more important. When we stand together, when we set aside our differences, we're capable of extraordinary things." Elena, standing beside him, added, "We still have a long road ahead. The Vraxians aren't defeated, but they're vulnerable." This was just the first step. Alan nodded. "And it's a step we couldn't have taken without every single one of you. Your courage, your sacrifice, and your commitment to something greater than yourselves made this possible." The bridge crew, and by extension, the rest of the fleet, felt a renewed sense of purpose. Alan's words were relayed across the coalition, reaching every corner of the makeshift alliance. Even the most reluctant species among them began to see the value in their newfound unity. In the days that followed, the coalition worked tirelessly to repair their ships, tend to the wounded, and honor the fallen. For the first time, representatives from the various civilizations shared their resources without hesitation. Engineers from the Grulloch worked alongside Surrock mechanics, while medical teams from the Xykra and Torvans collaborated to develop more effective treatments for the injured. The once fractured assembly began to transform into something greater, a true alliance, built on mutual respect and a shared desire to protect their galaxy. Meanwhile, the Vraxian Dominion, reeling from the unexpected loss of their supply lines, retreated to regroup. The coalition's strike had not only crippled their immediate offensive but also sent a clear message: the galaxy would not bow to their tyranny. The Vraxians' aura of invincibility had been shattered, and their overconfidence would not soon recover. As the coalition prepared for the inevitable counterattack, Alan and Elena met with the Assembly's leadership aboard the Resolute Star. The room, once a place of discord and petty disputes, now buzzed with a shared sense of purpose. "We have an opportunity here," Alan said, addressing the gathered leaders. "Not just to defend ourselves, but to build something lasting. A galaxy where cooperation isn't just a necessity in times of crisis, but a way of life." The Grulloch representative, who had been one of the staunchest critics of the coalition's plan, stood and spoke. "Captain Mercer is right. We have seen what we can achieve together. Let this be the beginning of a new era for our galaxy." The sentiment was echoed across the room. One by one, the delegates voiced their support for a more permanent alliance. What had begun as a desperate attempt to survive had become a movement to redefine the galaxy's future. In the months that followed, the coalition formalized into the Galactic Accord, a council of equals dedicated to mutual defense, trade, and exploration. The Accord's charter enshrined the values of unity and cooperation, ensuring that the sacrifices made during the Vraxian conflict would not be in vain. For humanity, the experience was transformative. The humans' ingenuity and determination had earned them a place of respect among the galaxy's civilizations. No longer seen as mere newcomers, they became a symbol of hope and resilience, their actions inspiring others to believe in the power of collaboration. On the anniversary of the coalition's first victory, a memorial was unveiled at the site of the decisive battle. Representatives from every species gathered to honor the fallen and reflect on the lessons they had learned. Alan stood before the crowd, his voice steady as he delivered a closing address. "We came together because we had no choice," he said. "But what we discovered is that our differences are not weaknesses. They are our greatest strength. By embracing what makes us unique, we forged a bond that no enemy can break. Let this memorial stand as a reminder of what we've accomplished, and what we can achieve in the future." As the ceremony concluded, Alan looked out over the crowd. Delegates who had once refused to even share a room now stood side by side, united by a common purpose. The galaxy, once fractured by distrust and rivalry, had begun to heal. The moral of their struggle was clear: unity is not the absence of differences, but the ability to rise above them. When individuals and civilizations choose to work together, they can achieve the impossible. And though the Vraxians remained a threat, the galaxy was no longer a collection of isolated systems. It was a community, bound by the unbreakable resolve to protect their shared home. As Alan left the stage, he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The journey had been fraught with challenges, but it had also revealed the best of what humanity and the galaxy could be. In the end, the Coalition's greatest victory wasn't just in battle. It was in proving that even in the face of insurmountable odds, hope and unity could prevail.